Access granted. first touch with sunshine, meditating every breath. Different moods fill up my mind, switch up into my life, feeling smooth, feeling smooth. Enjoying the first touch with sunshine, meditating every breath. Different moods fill up my mind, switch up into my life, feeling smooth. Houston, let's start on the
just down to the south, everything's going on. New spot, real hot game, stop, thinks not. What's the trend to the next? Hopping on a new life. Lately I've been really out of my mind, people only could talk. I don't wanna waste my time living up off the way I'm sad, cause the feeling aren't real. I ain't gonna take about pills, falling boys up on a hill, cause I ain't never gonna fold. Played away illusion last night, legendary rocks on the road.
Working on the road.
Woo! For a long time, ain't no way to keep it on the low.
Enjoying the first touch with sunshine, meditating every breath. Different moods fill up my mind, switch up into my life, feeling smooth. Houston, let's start on
When the sun goes down, the starlight teeny. Have you ever imagined Houston shine like this? Pull up to our Houston, let's start farm, come to join it. Give yourself an arm, find yourself here, create yourself a place. Let's pick up, let's start rocket to the space. Hong Kong woke me up from my long last dream. Feel like I'm used to trapping into the realest meme. We're living in the same world, hitting different scene. Now we're looking for a solid team, we're looking for a solid team.
Houston, let's start on the stage, give yourself a shit. You don't wanna miss it. Houston, let's start on the stage, give yourself a shit. You don't wanna miss it. I never feel it so good. You don't wanna miss it. Houston, let's start on the stage, give yourself a shit. You don't wanna miss it. I never feel it so good. You don't wanna miss it. Houston, let's start on the stage, give yourself a shit. You don't wanna miss it. I never feel it so good. Give yourself a shit. You don't wanna miss it. Houston, let's start on the stage, give yourself a shit. You don't wanna miss it. I never feel it so good.
是谁霸占我们的牧场？是谁夺走我们的牛羊？是谁抹掉我们的语言？是谁剥夺我们的信仰？是谁奴役我们的兄弟？是谁蹂躏我们的金钱？是谁让我们母亲流泪？是谁掐灭孩子的希望？是中国共产党！战马就是我的生命，雄鹰是我飞翔的翅膀。踏上母鸡缝制的马靴，马奶酒让我藐视死亡。跨上马与狂风对话，迎着黄沙我再次出发。无畏的血水战甲滑落，我的伤口是燃烧的太阳。哦嘿呦，哦嘿呦，哦嘿呦，哦嘿呦，哦嘿呦，哦嘿呦，哦嘿呦，哦 起来反抗，英雄故事必被后代传唱。我们是勇士的民族，不屈的血在身上流淌，神圣的母语放声高喊，我还们能赢，猴子大呀！哦嘿呦，哦嘿呦，哦嘿呦，哦嘿呦，哦嘿呦，哦嘿呦，哦嘿呦，哦嘿呦，哦嘿呦，哦嘿呦。旗帜在马背上，英英矗立在我肩膀，一生在战场，是我的荣耀。哦嘿呦，哦嘿呦，哦嘿呦，伟大的长城边，我的魂与你同在。我们是的草原跟整个主人，哦嘿呦，哦嘿呦，哦嘿呦，我们是的草原跟整个主人，哦嘿呦，哦嘿呦，哦嘿呦，我还不能比猴子大呀！
Good evening, Fringers. It is Friday, June 11th, 2021. Thank you for joining us and welcome to episode 43 of The Fringe. I'm your host, David Vincent Bob. The Fringe is simultaneously broadcast in English and in Chinese every Tuesday and Friday night on gtv.org, MOS Talk, from 7 to 8 p.m. Please spread the word about our show to all of your family and friends and subscribe and follow us on gtv.org, MOS Talk. With me tonight, ladies and gentlemen, is one of the hardest working and smartest women I know in the entire world of GTV. I am so happy and honored to have her here with me this evening. It's Isla. Welcome to the show, Isla. It's so great to see you again.
Thank you so much, David, and good evening, Fringers. It has always been my greatest pleasure to be on the show with David as well. So tonight we have some breaking news before our planned segments. So on Friday, Attorney General Merrick Garland just announces that the Justice Department will scrutinize any post-election audits for evidence of voting laws violation. So any thoughts on that, David?
Yeah, I think, well, let's play that video first, and then we'll get into it a little bit. How about that?
Of course. Let's roll the video, please, Chris.
We will apply the same scrutiny to post-election audits to ensure they abide by federal statutory requirements to protect election records and avoid the intimidation of voters. In that regard, we will publish guidance explaining the civil and criminal statutes that apply to post-election audits, and we will likewise publish guidance with respect to early voting and voting by mail.
Okay, so this is breaking news. We just found out about this literally right before the show. You'll be seeing this talked about a lot more very soon on upcoming episodes of news broadcasts here on GTV. Basically, the district, the DOJ is getting involved in post-election audits. So we're not sure exactly where this is going to go. We just thought we'd bring this to the forefront and talk about it a little bit. It's certainly something we want to follow and is going to affect future elections. We're not sure if it's going to retroactively affect this last election. It seems like they're trying to put the pressure on the way that post-election audits are conducted. And also, what I think this does, Isla, is it brings to light the fact that if they are going to start focusing on elections like they think they should anyway, this could perhaps open that door, that Pandora's box, to show that the CCP was somehow involved in this past election.
Probably, David. I think it's also very interesting to look at the timing of why DOJ currently announces that a certain, scrutinization of any post-election audits. Are we expecting any huge evidence reporting the election fraud for the last election, or are we expecting something huge to happen? Why are they doing this and announces this policy around this time? Because we know that we are now only 2 to 3 weeks left before the July 4th, the Independence Day. So I believe a lot of things would happen during that period of time. And this will certainly bring back people's attention to the past elections fraud. Although many mainstream media has been saying that any post-election audits of all of those voting violations are baseless. But for people who are watching Fringe, the Fringe for a long time, for people who are supporting the whistleblowers movement, we have all been very well aware of the election fraud because every fellow member of this movement have witnessed how ridiculous that election was.
Yeah, thank you, Isla, because you made some great points there. And I've been reading the comments. I've been trying to take this all in and see where this is headed or try to give my own insight on what I think is possibly happening here. And what I can assume at this point is no matter what, it does bring the attention to the election fraud, I think. This can go either way. Like anything else in politics, we have one side saying one thing, one side saying another. I was surprised when I read the comments under the videos on YouTube for this DOJ speech about how many people really don't like Trump. And that's what this is really all about to me, is just them, really, seriously, if you look at it, the left perpetuating the fact that they don't like Donald Trump. We have CNN losing ratings because we have crazy things going on with this administration right now, and they're completely lying about everything. We know that because we report the truth, and this is where you catch it. But we are going to keep a very close eye on this one, because I think what's going to come out of this is going to be something that's going to hit them out of left field, and they're not going to be expecting it. And I like what you said about there's a possibility they're doing this to save their own face, to save face on their own end. They're possibly doing it to set up some sort of defense because something big is about to happen. So this will definitely be something we all need to pay attention to, and we will certainly be covering this again soon on The Fringe. Again, so let's move on to what we were talking about. I'm going to move on to some more breaking news, but I want to say something that I heard at the June 3rd special that keeps ringing over and over in my head, the anniversary. Obviously, it was June 4th, but we had our celebration on June 3rd. And it was something that Steve Bannon kept saying at the end of every sentence almost when he gave a speech in the beginning. I was right there next to stage. I was a host, so I was privy to being right there and being able to be in close contact with all these people. It was quite an honor. We have to continue to fight for the complete and total destruction of the Chinese Communist Party. Does that sound familiar, Isla?
Yes, of course. Mr. Bannon repeated that sentence every single time when he finished a paragraph.
Yeah, and the reason I want to bring that up, Isla, is because our government isn't, I really don't think that they are going to help us at this point, especially in light of where we've been headed just these past couple days. And that's what this episode is about tonight. And that's why we call it what we call it. We named the episode tonight, the fight gets tougher. And the reason why is because it's seeming to me, looking at all this evidence, fact-based evidence about where our country is right now and what our leaders have been doing, and well, I use leaders in quotations because I don't feel like they're that strong of leaders, and it's hard to call them that anyway. But where we're heading is a place where this government, it doesn't feel like they're going to support us. They're certainly not paying attention to our cause. And the reason I say that is, just because, again, of everything they've been doing recently, we have some cringy videos of Kamala Harris during an interview laughing about what's happening at the border. Biden favoring the CCP, stating that global warming is our biggest threat. There's so much more, and this is like a doozy of a show. But again, that's the leadership we're dealing with, and that's why the whistleblower movement is now more important than ever. Is now more important than it's ever been. This fight is truly getting tougher, but it is at times like these that we show how strong we really are. And I've been around all these people, so have you, Isla, and we are strong. I think this is going to make us stronger. Unfortunately, what's happening in our nation is not leaning toward them wanting to help us, and they're going against us again. We're going to prove that again tonight when we show you what we have featured for our segments tonight for our episode. So let's get into that. And the first thing I want to show you is FBI Director Wray has testified now before the U.S. House panel on 6/10. This was yesterday. And Senator Gates questioned him about their handling of Dr. Li Mengyan and her information on the COVID-19 virus. That's our first video. Let's roll that one now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There has been a cover-up regarding the origins of coronavirus. We see it in the Fauci emails. We see it in the G7's call today to renew an inquiry into those origins. We see it in the Biden administration's efforts to squelch investigation into the origins of the coronavirus. And I want to figure out what side the FBI is on. On April 28th, Dr. Li Mengyan landed at LAX. One of your agents interviewed her at that time. She then traveled to New York. Your agent from Los Angeles followed her to New York and sought an interview on both the 1st of May and the 2nd of May in 2020. The FBI took Dr. Li Mengyan's phone, on which the doctor showed evidence of WeChat communications between herself and the director of the CDC in Beijing, all the way dating back to December of 2019, regarding the Chinese military's involvement in the development of the virus and specific links to the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Director Wray, when did you become aware of your agency's interface with Dr. Yang? When did you review those WeChat messages?
I'm not sure that there's much I can say about any specific investigation. I will say that a couple things. One, as I think you know, and I think the committee knows, I have been very vocal, and I intend to continue to be very vocal about the counterintelligence threat, which takes a wide variety of forms from the People's Republic of China and the Chinese Communist Party. And I think it's one of the most significant threats facing this country.
Is Dr. Yan part of that threat?
Well, again, don't want to speak specifically about any particular investigation. But the second thing I would mention is that...
Well, here's why that's important. Yeah. On the first thing, Director Wray, back in April and May of 2020, we didn't have nearly 600,000 people dead as a result of the coronavirus. On October 14th, 2020, FBI agent Andrew Zitman brought a scientist who was working with the FBI to meet with Dr. Yan in New York on October 14th. They met for nearly 6 hours. Can you tell us anything about that meeting and what it tells us about the origins of this virus? It is simply unacceptable to sit here a year later and say you're not going to tell us whether or not there was information about the origins of the virus when it is so central to the safety and health of our fellow Americans.
I certainly understand the point of the question. Again, I have to be careful not to discuss specific investigations. I will say that in addition to our investigative work, as I think has been recently publicly stated by the DNI, and I think even the President himself, the intelligence community has been looking at this issue. There are differences of view within the intelligence community about the origins of the coronavirus.
Totally
and so
understand
forth.
all that. I'm trying to resolve
taking
those differences
deeper
with these
dive on that
questions, though.
subject.
Director, we are unable to hold the Chinese Communist Party accountable if we throw our hands in the air and say, well, there's differences of opinion. We have to assess whether those differences are similarly rooted in fact. That's why I need the facts from you. Will you provide to this committee any scientific analysis that the FBI has done regarding Dr. Yan's claims, regarding the messages she provided to you, regarding Beijing's knowledge of the origins of this virus, their military's involvement, and even efforts to try to present to the world a fake genome sequence at the beginning of these developments?
I'm happy to see what information we can provide. I will have my staff follow up with yours and see what information we can share on the subject.
You get that if we don't look at that rooted information, we're unable to ascertain what differences of opinion are correct and incorrect. But it's hard to believe that the FBI didn't believe Dr. Yan was credible or significant because she lands on April 28th. Your agent, Dana Murphy, takes her phone that day. I'm holding the receipt from where you got the phone that had the WeChat messages that had very important information regarding Beijing and the Chinese Communist Party. And it's not every day that an FBI agent flies from Los Angeles to New York to follow a Chinese doctor who is a whistleblower and a fact witness. And even if Dr. Yan's technical analysis of the virus is incorrect, the fact that she showed up saying that she wanted to provide information and tell the truth seems significant today. Now, back when Dr. Yan made these pronouncements regarding the Chinese Communist Party, their military involvement, the leak of this virus from the lab, we had a number of people trying to discredit her. Are you able to ascertain whether or not that effort to discredit Dr. Yan is part of the counterintelligence efforts by the Chinese Communist Party?
Again, I want to be careful both about what information we can provide in general about any kind of ongoing investigation, but also about what form that information would take, because in some cases, you may be touching on things that would be classified, and that might require a different format. So I certainly understand why you're asking the questions. Let me commit to you that I will go back with my folks and see what information can be provided and what form it would have to take if we can provide any.
That would be very helpful. Mr. Chairman, may I be recognized?
Mr. Deutsch.
Oh, wait, hold on, Mr. Chairman. You let everybody else go over for a minute. May I be recognized just for unanimous consent request?
The gentleman's time is expired,
You're not
Mr.
treating
Deutsch.
everyone equally, Mr. Chairman. You went over by more than
Gentleman's
a minute.
time-
Mr. Johnson went over by 45 seconds.
Gentleman's
I just
time
want
is
unanimous
expired, Mr. Deutsch. What?
I just want a unanimous consent request.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You want a unanimous consent for what?
To get a
Oh,
document into the
okay,
record.
I'm sorry.
Just a UC is all.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I seek unanimous consent to enter into the record the receipt from the United States Department of Justice wherein Dr. Yang's phone was taken by FBI agent Dana Murphy.
Without objection, the gentleman's time is expired, Mr. Deutsch.
Woo! Ho, ho, ho. So, Isla, here we go. So, I like saying Yan, how they say it in Chinese, Yan Li Meng. It just sounds easier. But anyway, so Dr. Yan lands in LAX, right? We're going over all this stuff that you and I, everyone in GTV, in the GTV universe again, has been talking about for over a year now since she's been here. And we're finally just now having him appear in front of a committee in the House, getting, Ray, the director of the FBI, and it sounded like he was willing to work with us, but at the same time, he wasn't well prepared for what was given to him there. I think this has taken way too long, and it really is a travesty of our system that it took this long to do this. We had phone evidence of her with the CDC director from Beijing. They said back in 2019, from 2019, they had evidence that something was going on at that lab in Wuhan. Today is June 11th, 2021. That's almost 2 years in between the time that she knew about this till us finding out about it and to today. Obviously, it was April 28th when they took her phone and realized something back then. But the thing that's most disturbing about all this, Isla, is they didn't do anything about it. With all that evidence right there in front of them. And now it's coming to light, so they're back to the wall. It's pretty hard to hold the FBI down to anything because, they are so powerful. And but hopefully this, people start taking this very seriously now after all this time. But really, You know the reason why they didn't investigate this, Isla? It's because they didn't like Donald Trump. That's why they didn't do this. That's why anything that happened during his administration didn't happen, because they didn't like the man. They put our lives last because they didn't like a single person. They didn't like Donald Trump. And that's why all of this happened. That's why we are where we are now. And I'm going to tell you something, Isla. I'm not buying into the fact that he doesn't know what's going on or can't discuss. He is the director of the FBI. I understand his point of view that, well, I can't divulge some things now. We'll have to check and see if maybe we can get some information and talk. No, we want the information now. We are owed that as U.S. citizens. It is your responsibility to make sure we're safe. That's what the FBI and the CIA do. They need to hold the CCP accountable for this, and I want to be provided facts also, just like Senator Gates, who was pressing him very well in that hearing right there, which was awesome. So that's it. That's my point of view right there. This is irresponsible FBI leadership, as far as I'm concerned. This is great. Again, the way that Senator Gates was pushing him, and I'd love to hear your comments and thoughts on this, your insight on this one, Isla.
Thank you, David. I think for people who are in the movement, in the whistleblowers movement, and for people who are following Dr. Li Mannian for a long time, we are all expecting the day to come. We want Dr. Yan's information about the COVID-19. We want all of her reports and information can be heard and read by more people so that we can save more lives. As usual, every time when we talk about COVID-19, I would like to start with some data. So statistics shows currently, right now, we have 175 million cases of COVID-19 worldwide, which equals 1 case per 42 people. How scary it is. So where does this virus come from? I would like to ask those questions repetitively. How should we fight against the COVID-19 pandemic? Are the vaccines available right now effective enough for us to come over this pandemic? Where are we at when we were listening to Dr. Yan a year ago? And Dr. Yan, of course, she's the very first virologist who exposed the truth of COVID-19 and its relationship with the Chinese Communist Party in the world. So for people who watched the Luda program last night, you guys shouldn't be strange about all of her stories about how did she flee from Hong Kong to United States, and her husband almost murdered her by putting the poison into her breakfast, right? So all of those stories brought us where we were today. It's so difficult. It's such a huge challenge for her to expose any truth related to the COVID-19 and its relationship between this virus, this pandemic, and the Chinese Communist Party. And just like what Miles had been streaming this morning, that a lot of our fellow members of the whistleblowers movement actually assisted Dr. Yan to come over to the United States on her way to the freedom. And many of them are actually arrested or get fired by the government agency or by their companies because they were threatened by the CCP as well, and they were controlled by the party so that they can't leave Hong Kong, they can't leave mainland China, they lost their jobs. So what we see today, all of the Dr. Yan's reports and all of the information that we share about the truth of COVID-19, those things behind are our members of the whistleblowers movement and Rothwell Society and Foundation. So I think it's a tough journey for us to spread any single truth about this virus, about its origin. And it's very surprising to see how the director of FBI, the director Ray, responded to all of those questions. Just like you said, David, he's not prepared. He's not prepared at all to share any information about the investigation or about any reports that he heard from his fellow staff in the FBI, and it's very disappointing because we waited Dr. Yan to be heard by more people for too long. Where were we a year ago, and what would happen differently if more people can hear Dr. Yan's advice on protecting themselves by fighting against the COVID-19, David?
I'll tell you what would have happened. A lot more people would have survived and lived. A lot of people died because people didn't like Donald Trump. That's the only reason. They put their feelings in front of the facts, and that's the way it's always been during his entire presidency. If they would have listened to Donald Trump back then, we could have saved, well, Dr. Yan, of course, being at the top of all of that, coming over here and exposing it, we could have saved hundreds of thousands of lives. And I really wanted to talk to her, but she was so busy, and, you know, she had her bodyguards with her, and I didn't want to bother her too much, but I would love to just sit down and talk to her and thank her and just see what's going through her mind with all this stuff. But yeah, you can't state enough how important she is, you know, as the whistleblower that started all this. And they didn't listen. They're still not listening, and they're still fudging around with their numbers. They're still making us wait for the answers, and still people have died and nobody's being held accountable. That's what needs to happen, accountability. All right, so we're going to move right into more about the Wuhan lab. And basically what's happening now also, Isla, is Democrats are stonewalling the probe into the Wuhan lab. They don't want us to investigate it. They're calling it a distraction report. Let's play that video now, please.
Democrats in Congress reportedly blocking multiple requests for probes into the Wuhan lab leak theory. Government officials blocking it too, despite the Livermore National Laboratory now saying it's plausible and should be investigated. Joining us now is Congressman James Comer from House Oversight. Sir, it's good to have you back on. It's great to see you again. This is the Christian Science Monitor reporting this, that the Democrats are blocking this. Is this true? Is this what's going on?
Well, it certainly seems that way. You know, the Democrats are worried for two reasons about the origination of COVID. Number one, they're worried that Donald Trump will be proven right. And number two, they're worried they're going to offend their progressive base that's so worried about political correctness. They're afraid that this might somehow be offensive to Asian Americans, which, of course, we all know it's not. But regardless, the Democrats don't want to talk about this, which is ironic because they tried to turn over every stone possible for 4 years investigating Russia and any type of potential collusion between Donald Trump and Russia. Now we have the biggest scandal of my lifetime, the COVID pandemic, and they don't want to lift a finger. They don't want to talk about it, and they certainly don't want to investigate it.
Yeah, the Christian Science Monitor reporting that they're talking to Democrat officials in Congress saying that it's being stonewalled because they don't want to distract from, Democrats do not want to distract from the narrative that President Trump mishandled the pandemic. And, you know, so the stonewalling is happening. The NIH is accused of stonewalling Republicans on House Energy and Commerce. Secretary of State is accused also of stonewalling Energy and Commerce. And Nancy Pelosi has yet to respond to the letter from 209 Republicans saying, yeah, get congressional investigators on this. So what are you hearing Democrats saying about this? What are they saying?
They're not saying anything. You know, we just had a committee hearing yesterday on the Oversight Committee, and several members, including myself, called for a hearing on this. They asked when we're going to investigate this, and the Democrats won't even respond. They just smile into the camera and act like nothing ever happened. They don't want to talk about this because,
you know, and we're not lying here, Isla. This is absolutely shocking that they're blocking probes into Wuhan. I mean, how much more do you need to show that they're hiding something? Because there's no doubt about it to me that they are. Again, going back to what I said in the previous segment, they are doing this because they are so afraid that Donald Trump will be proven right, and he will. We already know that it's going to happen because we have the #1 whistleblower in the world, Dr. Li Minyan, who exposed all of this. It's just a matter of time, Isla. They're afraid also, as he said, of offending their own progressive base. Let me ask you something. As a Chinese American, he said Asian Americans would be offended. That's the whole feeling now. That's the image they're trying to give across as how Americans are. Would you be offended, Isla, as an Asian American, if we probed into this and into the CCP?
No, I wouldn't feel any offended by this because I feel like it's very, you know, it is of essential need for us to do a clear and thorough investigation of what had happened into the Wuhan Institute of Virology and its relationship with the PLA. We need an answer. It's not about being offended or not. We need an answer for this pandemic, David.
Yeah, that's right. And I'll tell you something, I knew that was going to be your answer. That's why I had to throw you. That was kind of the softball question, but I knew it because it's common sense. If you ask 100 Asian people, I guarantee 100% of them would be like, yeah, go check it out. We're not offended if they're Chinese or if the CCP is Chinese people that did this. They don't care about that. They care about making sure this doesn't happen again. And the way this doesn't happen again is by taking down the CCP. Because if we don't, it will happen again. People, you think COVID was bad? Wait till you see what they have next set up for you. I'm telling you, we have to take down the CCP. It's the double standard of the Democratic Party. If this were President Trump, Isla, that was doing this, they would find the nearest flagpole and try to hang him from it. A great point that he made was that we have spent, our government, the anti-Trumpers in our government, spent the better part of 4 years wasting nothing but millions of dollars in time, thousands of hours, of hundreds of thousands of hours of time on a Russia probe. And there is nothing at all that came out of that. We know it was false now. They're trying to save face on that one too. But we have solid evidence that this lab in Wuhan created this virus, and they don't even want to investigate it. The disparity between those two things, Isla, is so unbelievable that sometimes even saying it, I can't believe the words are coming out of my mouth. They are not taking this seriously enough. And that in itself is a travesty. There are over 600,000 dead Americans, and they don't want to look into this because they don't want to admit they were wrong, and they don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. You got to be kidding me.
Right, David. I think another reason of that they don't want to do a clear investigation into the Wuhan lab is that we clearly see some financial funds from the United States institutions into Wuhan lab earlier on about the gain of function experiment and about everything. So I think that's part of the reason that why they're hiding. They're very reluctant to say that we will do a clear investigation because all of these will lead to themselves, their own responsibility as well. And I really appreciate your point that, for Chinese immigrants or Chinese Americans or Asian American community, we shouldn't be offended if the world requires an investigation into the Wuhan Institute of Virology. It's not about your left or right. It's not about the color of your face. It's not about your religions. See, we have 175 million cases of COVID-19. It's about human lives. We need an answer. We need a clear investigation, and we want to make sure that this won't happen again within the Chinese Communist Party and on a global scale as well. So it's not about whether we were trying to be offending a single particular group. It's about we want the answer, we want the truth of this COVID-19. And I want to say that, Dr. Navarro was the only one from Trump's office to say that it's CCP virus. So despite we see the Biden administration right now, of course, I think there's no one who would stop people digging out the truth of COVID-19 because we can't stand those things anymore. It's been a year. The virus is still spreading. We see all of those vaccines available in different countries, but you never see the numbers being decreased, or you never see the pandemic come to an end. So I think that's a good timing for us to unite together to fight against the COVID-19 and to realize the importance of unraveling the relationship between the virus and the Chinese Communist Party, the PLA per se. So that's why I think going back around our first segment, the video, it's very important to, download GTV, read G News, to listen to what Dr. Yan had been trying to say over a year. It really isn't about whether you are left or right, whether you support Trump or support Biden. It's about human lives. We need to fight together against the COVID-19, and more specifically, that's we need to hold the Chinese Communist Party accountable, and in turn taking down the CCP for ending this pandemic, David.
Yeah, we really need people to look at the big picture here. We don't. There's so much going on with the Chinese Communist Party right now, and the more we reveal what's happening, I think it'll open people's eyes to what's really happening here with the CCP, and that's why I'm sorry. Was there? And that's why we have to continue to do what we're doing here. And that's you made a great point. I mean, that's what we're doing as whistleblowers. That's what GTV News does. That's what we're here at gtv.org doing to bring that to people every day. And that's what this episode, again, I'll keep bringing it up, is about. The fight, it's not going to be easy all the time, people. It's not. There are moments where it feels like we're really gaining a lot of steam and we're really moving forward. And then you're going to slow down again a little bit and you got another battle to fight. But that's what the war is about. The war is about a bunch of little battles that we have to fight and win in order to win the entire war. And it's the war against the CCP. And all we can do here, Isla, is continue to bring the truth to people, the Fringe, truth, integrity, and commitment. As long as we stick to those ideals, we're going to go really far. So anyway, let's head on to the next segment here. And what we're going to talk about next is something, again, that shows how weak our president really is. Again, we tried our best to left and the right. We didn't want to make it about that. We want to make this about humanity. We really do. But there's times where you have to just step back and say, okay, we're going to need to fight a little bit harder because we have this guy talking about this, and it's our president talking about global warming and how that is the greatest threat to the U.S. and not the CCP. You got to be kidding me. Roll that video.
First, this might surprise you. According to our commander-in-chief, the greatest threat to our servicemen and women, it's not China, it's not Russia, it's not Iran or North Korea, it's not radical Islamic terrorists, it's not nuclear war. No, according to President Sippy Cup Joe, the greatest threat to our military is global warming, and he was not joking. Take a look.
We must all commit to an ambitious climate action if we're going to prevent the worst impacts of climate change, limiting global warming to no more than 1.5 degrees Celsius, and lead the global transition to clean energy technology. When I went over in the tank in the Pentagon, when I first was elected vice president with President Obama, the military sat us down to let us know what the greatest threats facing America were, the greatest physical threats. This is not a joke. You know what the Joint Chiefs told us the greatest threat facing America was? Global warming.
So, okay, you know what? This sums it up for me, Isla. He's talking about 1.5 degrees Celsius, and we're trying to talk about 600,000 deaths and how many millions of all over the world and hundreds of millions of infections. This guy is absolutely out of his mind. And again, this to me is one of the biggest reasons our fight just got a little more difficult. Here's another battle we have to fight. I really hope that this puts some kind of fear into the American people, because they need to feel that fear. They need to see that what this guy's talking about is a complete misdirection against what's really happening here. If you didn't, before he was elected, believe that the CCP has Joe Biden in their back pocket, this should be nothing but solid evidence right here. This man's worried about a few degrees of climate change, and we have things going on in the world like COVID-19 and the CCP and Russia, albeit he is going to talk to Russia this weekend. I can't wait to report on that on Tuesday, Isla, to see how that goes. We really need to keep tabs on what this administration is doing. They are not putting Americans first, and they are jeopardizing every one of our lives every moment this administration continues to move forward. And when I read comments that people post in Facebook, I'm sorry, I don't follow Facebook, on YouTube about their support of this president, I just don't get it. I'm here. I'm trying to be as honest as I can be about everything. I am truthful. You know that, Isla. And I just don't understand what they see in this guy. Why they don't understand the truth. Why they refuse to listen to it. Over to you.
David, I found it very ironic to see how President Biden addressed global warming as the greatest threats to the country, not even COVID-19. So I don't see the point of pointing out the importance of focusing on it. I'm not saying that global warming isn't something that we should pay attention to, but when you are putting like the single biggest threats of this country, I think there are more consideration to be made before you address that point. And we have people dying of COVID-19 every single day, and President Biden is not addressing that as a huge threat to the country. Remember, the pandemic was defined by Dr. Liman Yan as an unrestricted biological warfare. It's not a simple pandemic. It won't disappear in nonsense. We need to find an answer. And we all know that for people who are in the whistleblowers movement for a long time, for people who watch our program for a long time, we all know this. The Chinese Communist Party poses the greatest threats to the United States. What CCP plans is not to compete with the U.S., is to take down the U.S. They want world domination. And that's why to release the virus, they changed the methods of our daily lives. They changed our business models. They controlled our economy. And that's why we have to stop at our homes and doing quarantines, doing rapid tests when we go to work. Those things have changed us in every single way of their lives. And we are saying that global warming poses the greatest threat to this country. So this is really something nonsense, particularly that the pandemic hasn't come to an end, David.
You know, Fringers, Isla made a really, really great point there, and it's something we need to make sure we remind you of. And I do want you to be afraid of this because you need to listen to it and need to heed our warning. This is biological warfare. We're telling you right now, there was a book written about it. This has been proven. This virus was just the beginning. This virus killed 600,000 Americans. That's more Americans than were killed in World War II. That, my friends, my fringers out there, is what they call biological warfare. They found a cheap way to do things because that's how the CCP operates. They're all about their bottom line. They love to make money, and they'll take yours away if you make too much. That's how it happens over in China. You make too much money, they think maybe you're going to be too powerful. They make you disappear. They put you in jail, and they take your money away from you. That's what the bottom line is for them. There is more labs than the WIV over there, people. There's 100 labs. There might be hundreds. There's over 100 labs in China controlled by the CCP where they're creating the ultimate weapon, the ultimate biological weapon to end humanity. I'm telling you people right now, if we don't take down the CCP, your future is bleak. I can guarantee you that. So let's move on to a little bit here about the United States. This illegal immigration issue will not go away, and the Democrats simply do not understand what it's about either. And I think, Isla, to be honest, they don't want it to go away. And I'm going to explain why in a minute after we watch that video.
Vice President Kamala Harris addressed illegal immigration while in Guatemala Monday during her first foreign trip. The vice president is tasked with addressing the surge of migrants attempting to enter the U.S. illegally at the southern border. During a news conference with Guatemala's president, she said the Biden administration was working to address the root causes of migration and delivered a stark warning to would-be migrants. CBS News senior White House and political correspondent Ed O'Keefe has the latest from Guatemala City.
Vice President Harris used her first appearance on the world stage to deliver a blunt message to migrants seeking to enter the U.S. illegally.
Do not come. Do not come. If you come to our border, you will be turned back.
Okay, so first of all, this disaster of a vice president who was elected because of the color of her skin and not the content of her character, going against exactly what Martin Luther King Jr. said, first of all. They're calling this the root causes tour. She must have said the root cause 500 times during this visit to Guatemala, Isla. And what I'm going to explain to you is very simply what the real cause of this migration is, and it's her administration. On day one with the stroke of a pen, Joe Biden opened the doors, and he even announced, open the borders, stop building a wall, and even announced, come on into America. Our doors are open, come on in. They flooded up here from the southern borders, and now they're trying to deflect it away from themselves by saying, we're not the problem. The countries that are coming here, we need to find out what their problem is so they don't need to come here anymore. That's not how it works, Kamala. I'm not even vice president, and I can tell you, we do keep our border open to legal immigration. You opened it for everybody to come in, and I'm going to explain to you why. Like I said in the beginning of this little diatribe I'm having here, Isla, why they do this. They do this for one simple reason, and it's because of votes. They let in 100,000 people, 200,000, 300,000. You know what that is to the Democratic Party, Isla? That is 100, 200, 300,000 votes for them. It ensures the longevity of the Democratic Party in our government. That's why they're doing this. That's why they open these borders up, let these people in. That's why they're trying to pass H.R. 1. So you don't have to show an ID to vote. You don't have to be a legal citizen. You can be an illegal immigrant to vote. And they're trying to pass mail-in balloting. Look at the big picture, people. The reason they're doing that is because they can send out people to help these immigrants fill out their mail-in balloting, send it in. They don't even need to show an ID. They don't even need to be a citizen, but they're going to vote they're going to vote Democrat, and they're going to keep the Democrats in office so they can continue to take this country down the way it's going right now. And that's not a place that we want to be, believe me, because right now we're headed toward that socialism and communism. And we're going to show you a little bit later, too, in this episode, how someone from China actually sees that happening, and she's at the root of all of it with something else that we're going to talk about here in the very near future in this episode. So I guarantee you that if H.R. 1 passes, they will open up these centers, they will help these illegal immigrants to vote, and the Democrats will stay in office. That's why all of this is happening, Isla. That's my take on it. That's my insight.
Right, David. I think it's very interesting to see that Biden trying to make a U-turn about all of Trump's policies since day one. And right now, Kamala's trying to say, hey, just don't come to the border. We won't accept any illegal immigrants. But what are the methods that you're trying to protect this country or trying to protect those illegal immigrants? When they came to the border, are they being well taken care of? I remember for our, in the past episodes, we've actually showed our Fringers a video of how, the COVID virus was spread in the community around the border because all of those immigrants were trapped into a place with very, low health condition. And this is something that we don't want to see. We want every people to, live in a good condition. We want them to receive medical support when needed. So I think the question I'm putting right here is that when you're trying to overturning all of the policies that were assigned by last administration, was it for this country's good or was it for the votes? So I think that's the question, not only for the border issue, but also for COVID-19, for all of those issues that we see today. And we certainly, especially for those who have experienced the socialism and communism countries, we certainly don't want the United States to step into a socialist pathway. David.
Yeah, that's right, Isla. And we're going to segue. That segues nice into the next video, which kind of is the cap on all of this. And this is the interview that Kamala Harris had after her visit to Guatemala. Let's roll that video now.
Just quickly put a button.
Okay.
Do you have any plans to visit the border?
At some point, we are going to the border. We've been to the border. So this whole thing about the border, we've been to the border. We've been to the border.
You haven't been to the border.
And I haven't been to Europe. And I don't understand the point that you're making.
And I haven't been to Europe. I don't understand the point that you're making. Thank you, Kamala, for that. Thank you for verifying. You have no clue what's going on, because that's all she did in that interview right there, Isla. If you watch the whole thing, people, that is one of the most cringeworthy videos I've ever seen of any person, let alone a person who's the second highest official in this entire world of the free, of the free world, the United States of America. And I call her the queen of cringe, and she's done it again. She's saying, do not come to the United States. But what she really means is, come on in. We need your votes. Because listen, Isla, the reason she's not going to the border is because she doesn't care about the border. The reason she went to Guatemala is because she doesn't care what's happening at our border. They want people to come in here. It's votes for them. Just like I said in the previous segment, that's all it is. And this video, this right here, Isla, could be a turning point in her career also, because there's a lot of speculation that the way she handled this trip, the way she just laughs off everything that needs to be taken seriously, is what's really going to affect her reelection. Obviously, they are trying to preen her for the runner-up to, the next president behind Biden. No way. First of all, no way. Second of all, if you want to know why I think no way, just watch that video again. She is extremely dangerous to this country, and she just proved it right there. She takes nothing seriously. And again, if you listen to her, she is absolutely clueless about the real big picture, what's really going on. Again, you are allowed to come into this country if you do it legally. That's the way it works. That's why the wall was put up. That's why crime went down almost 600% at the border and in border countries, border cities and border states, because the wall went up and the Biden administration basically ruined all of that. And they're not fixing it. They're not going to fix it. And I'm telling you why, people, because they want votes. But I saw something today, Isla, that was very interesting. And it's each of these border states can actually get around this whole dilemma of not having a wall up where they need them to keep these illegal immigrants off of their property and keep them from harassing them and selling drugs and murders and everything else they're doing, is that each individual state can pass laws and they can put up a barrier on their property. So there's ways to get around it, and they're working on that now. It's unfortunate we have to do that, but legal immigration is just that. It's legal immigration. We need to follow that policy the way it was written. This administration obviously isn't, and we know why. They need votes.
Of course, David. I think it's, after this 5 January is so close to us, but I think within the first 6 months, we've already received a lot of disappointment and frustration from the current administration. The border issues, people are paying attention to that. When Trump was trying to build a wall at the border, people are trying to complaining and saying he's racist, putting all of those, trying to sabotage him. But did this administration came up with a better way of handling the border issues? No, obviously not. And within the COVID pandemic, we have also not seen a better alternative that provided by the current administration. So I think the point right now is not to say that who did the right thing or who did the wrong thing, but it's trying to say don't just trying to overturn what Trump had signed in the past 4 years and trying to, putting the United States, particularly humans' lives, above your votes. And this is something very dangerous and extremely dangerous to do. Not only for the COVID-19 investigation, but also for the border issues. And I believe our next segment was also President Biden is trying to overturn what Trump had signed in the past 4 years. That Biden was signing a new executive order trying to stop the U.S. banning TikTok and WeChat, right, David?
Yeah, that's right. Let's play a video now.
U.S. President Joe Biden on Wednesday withdrew a series of Trump-era executive orders that sought to ban new downloads of TikTok and WeChat and ordered a new review of security concerns posed by those apps and others. Last summer, former President Donald Trump had attempted to block new users from downloading the apps and ban other technical transactions that Chinese-owned TikTok and WeChat both said would effectively block the app's use in the United States. The courts halted Trump's orders, which never took effect. Trump had claimed that TikTok, which has over 100 million users in the United States, and WeChat posed national security concerns, arguing that users' personal data could be collected by the Chinese government. TikTok and WeChat have denied the allegation. Biden's executive order directs the Commerce Department to make recommendations within 120 days to protect U.S. data acquired or accessible by companies controlled by foreign adversaries. Biden's new order also directs Commerce to evaluate on a continuing basis any transactions that, quote, pose an undue risk of catastrophic effects on the security or resiliency of the critical infrastructure or digital economy of the United States. A White House official said a separate U.S. national security review of TikTok, launched in late 2019, remains ongoing.
Yeah, Isla, of course Sleepy Joe's doing this. Like I said, earlier in this segment, in this episode, he's indebted to the CCP. They have him in their back pocket. We've said it from the beginning. I said it before he was elected. People knew about it because of Hunter Biden's laptop. And this is further proof of that. What else do you need? We can keep piling it on and showing people. And that's why our struggle is so hard, because we're not battling only against the outside now. We're battling against our own government, which seems to be favoring the CCP very much in all aspects of everything they do. And we need to keep making sure that we make people aware of this, Isla. And that's why we keep doing this. It just seems like recently it's been a lot. They're really piling on a lot recently. And I think that's why this episode is so special, because we really need to let people know and show them what our government is doing that favors the CCP. Again, we're dealing with the CCP, and China is buried. And you're. Oh, hold on. Let me rephrase that. Anything dealing with the CCP in China is like buried, and we have to constantly, be hunted down and called xenophobes and bigots if we oppose anything that China does. It doesn't make any sense. It's not right. He is 100% on the side of the CCP. That's it. Again, Trump putting all these executive orders in there were not because he's a bigot and a xenophobe. It's because he put us first. He was protecting us from the tyranny of the CCP, which Joe Biden simply does not care about at all, and is opening the door again to them. And look what he's doing right now. He's pointing the finger at Russia. Yes, Russia's guilty of doing lots of things. We know that. They weren't obviously involved with the election of Trump. They tried to prove that over and over again. But Russia joined together with Iran and China, the CCP. They had a meeting, and they are the new axis of evil, and we know that. So Joe Biden, I'm glad he's pointing his finger at Russia for some things, but he's completely ignoring the fact that we need to take care of the CCP first. And it's all about Russia, white people, which we'll talk about shortly here. And our biggest threat is climate change. This is all misdirection, and it gets you to focus on something that they don't want you to focus on. And what that thing is, Isla, is the Chinese Communist Party.
Right, David. I think another interesting point can be looked at is that when you're trying to sign an executive order to overturn a policy, it actually causes some vast change in the stock market. And that's the game of Wall Street, and that's the game of the CCP, right? I'm not saying that President Biden is controlling all of those markets, but I'm saying that there is a possibility that president is doing this. And a common sense putting up right here is that you don't fight soft against CCP. You fight extremely hard against them, right? So I would love to remind President Biden of what WeChat could offer. WeChat media channels actually have touched upon Hunter's laptop issues after the U.S. election earlier on this year. So don't feel surprised, Sleepy Joe. CCP is never trying to be friends with the United States or with you, the current administration. what CCP has planned, as what we said and been discussed for a long time, is to take over the US. The Chinese Communist Party ultimately wants world domination. So we cannot just focus on whether we should ban WeChat or not. That's not enough. And WeChat, for many of our Chinese immigrants and for people who are watching this program who speaks Mandarin as well, this is the platform that most Chinese people use. Even among many of our fellow members in this movement, we have to use WeChat to stay connected with families and friends who currently still live in mainland China. So it has not become a bridge between mainland Chinese people to the world. It actually becomes a prison that traps the Chinese people, or traps for all of the people who has connections or familial or business ties within mainland China. So this is how the platform do, and this is how the CCP do. They use a single media platform to control and to monitor all of people's data on the mobile phone so that they know everybody's secrets. Again, to fight against the CCP, you don't fight soft, you don't overturn policies. You do it and you fight hard, and you must take them down. David.
Yeah, that's right. And you made some really interesting points there, some really good points. And they make them fun. They make these apps fun so people don't think about the repercussions of it. And it's just another way that CCP lies to people. Hey, we had this fun app TikTok, and everybody talks to each other in WeChat, and behind the scenes, they're up to no good. It's the CCP. It's the Chinese Communist Party. They don't create anything or do anything to make you happy. They're doing it because they're trying to gain an advantage one way or another. They're doing it with technology, with WeChat and with TikTok. They've done it with the Confucius Institutes invading our colleges and pounding propaganda into young, impressionable students' heads. We've seen everything they've done. We know what they're up to, and that's what we're here to expose, all of that. So finally, we're going to talk about critical race theory, which I like to call critical racism theory, because that's what it is. It's unbelievable that this is still acceptable in our schools, but there are people fighting back. And that's the great part. I can't even believe we're talking about this, actually. But we're going to close out this episode with a couple videos here. We're going to play 3 videos here. The first one is just a really quick definition of what critical race theory is. We're going to talk about that a bit, and then we'll get to the next video after that. So let's roll that first one.
Have you heard about critical race theory? I'm guessing you probably have. It has already insinuated itself into many institutions and is making rapid progress into others. If it takes hold, it will completely change the very nature of America and the way you live. Critical race theory holds that the most important thing about you is your race. The color of your skin, that's who you are. Not your behavior, not your values, not your environment. Your race. In critical race theory, if you are a member of a minoritized racial group, their term, not mine, you are a victim of a system that is rigged against you, a system that doesn't want you to succeed. On the other hand, if your race is privileged, you're an exploiter, whether you intend to be or not. Critical race theory begins from the assumption that racism occurs in all interactions. To see how this works, consider this thought experiment. Imagine you own a shop and 2 customers enter at the same time, one white and one black. Who do you help first? If you help the black person first, critical race theory would say you did so because you don't trust black people to be left alone in your store. That's racist. If you help the white person first instead, critical race theory would say you did so because you think blacks are second-class citizens. That's racist too. That's critical race theory. It can find racism in anything, even if it has to read your mind to do it.
So how ridiculous is this? This is a joke. This really is. I can't believe how serious people are about this critical racism theory, because what they're teaching our kids is racism. They're telling you, basically in a nutshell, and I heard a girl say this before, and I thought it was funny. If it's white, it ain't right. So that's what I heard before, and that's what I'm saying now. Let me tell you something really quickly here, and this is where the disparity happens. Is Isla, 73% of the United States is white. This all started, and all these woke movements and everything kicked off because of the George Floyd incident, which in itself was tragic. But these things that are coming out of that are completely unacceptable and should not be happening. Black Lives Matter, Antifa, it's all ridiculous. We see Black Lives Matter falling apart already because they stole money basically from people to live in rich mansions in white neighborhoods, which is the biggest irony of all of it. 73% of America is white. If a black man goes in to get a job, there's a good chance he won't get it because 73% of the American citizens are white. It's not about the color of his skin. It's just a simple percentage game. That's what it is. But they're turning it into race. That's something that people don't realize, Isla, when it comes to race. If you live in a country where 73% of the people are white, your chances of getting a job because you have a different skin color is not because you're a different skin color. It's because you have a different skin color. But it isn't because we're bigoted against you. It's just because that's how the rules and laws and percentages work. That's it. 73%. 7.3 out of every 10 people are white. That's what's going to happen. A white person is going to get a job because there's more white people applying for it. Not because the black person is black, simply because there's more white people. That's the way I look at it. And it's been talked about before. I've heard it talked about before. It's nothing but a percentage game that they turn into a racism game. Everybody in the United States, by the Constitution, the way it was written, is equal. We're all equal. We all have equal rights. Unfortunately, that wasn't practiced in the 60s, maybe even before that was slavery, when slavery ended. And then we fixed that in the 70s. But here we are again, Isla. We're backtracking. And now we're saying that because of all the things that happened to black people and to people of color, that white people now not only have to pay reparations, but white people are also considered bad people. That's not how it works. That is not how this works. Sorry. We, as I say, this nation, I talk on behalf of the nation, we did have problems. We have a checkered past. We took care of it. Doing this critical race takes us back into the past. You're poking a hornet's nest when you're telling white people they don't matter and they're stupid and nobody should listen to them and we're unimportant. We make up 73% of the population. Do the math.
I think there's no wrong to promoting equality or equity in this country, but the problem is you can't attack people of people's skin color, let alone no matter it's white or black, right? That's the stance we hold very firmly about this. So when you're when the mainstream media or all of those things that the current academic institutions are trying to teach our next generation about what racism is, you can't just say because you were wrong because you were right. Nobody was wrong because of its skin colors. In the USA, for a lot of eyes of the immigrants, it is a melting pot. That's why many immigrants came to this country, because we believe diversity happens right here. We believe we found the tolerance of enjoying the diversity of humankind, and we can do creative things. We share the opportunity as everybody else do in this country. I'm not saying that the United States doesn't have any problem of racism, but it's completely wrong if this whole racist issues just turn another way, trying to attack white people. And this is obviously, we've been discussing for a long time that CCP, every time we see the division within the United States, CCP is laughing behind them, because we were so focused on fighting against each other in this country and forgetting or ignoring the threat from the outside, from Chinese Communist Party, David.
Yeah, and that's what they love, and they're racist. We know that. I mean, look what they're doing over in China. Look at the Xinjiang. Look in Xinjiang with the Uyghurs. They made concentration camps for them. They love racism, and the CCP. I'm not saying Chinese people. And again, people, we need to make sure we separate the Chinese people from the government. They aren't the same. The Chinese people are obviously afraid to speak out against their government. They don't want to go to jail, so or be disappeared. But they're not the same, believe me. And here's something I really wanted to show all of you. This is very special, because this Virginia mom likens the critical race theory to the Maoist China. So she's saying there's a similarity between critical race theory and China under Mao. Let's play that video now.
A Virginia mom who survived Maoist China before coming to America is comparing teaching CRT, that race theory, to the revolution she escaped. Here's some of her powerful speech at the Loudoun County School Board.
I've been very alarmed about what's going on in our school. You are now training our children to be social justice warriors and to loathe our country and our history. This is indeed the American version of the Chinese Cultural Revolution. The critical race theory has its roots in cultural Marxism. It should have no place in our schools.
There you go, people. Straight from the mouth of a Chinese woman who lived through the Maoist era. This is what's happening in America right now. We've been warning you on the Fringe since day one. Miles Guo has been warning you, has started this movement to take down the CCP. He saw this coming. He warned you. We're here to help him, to warn you. People, that's where we're headed. You heard it right there. There was someone that lived through it, that sees us going through it. I have solid proof. I've said it before. You can see it happening. Now you have a woman right there. There's your evidence. If you don't think we're headed down in the wrong direction, you need to listen to her. You need to listen to our Chinese brothers and sisters. And I've said this before. They are the ones who can tell you best what's going on, because right there is solid proof that what's happening in this country right now is we are favoring the CCP. We are opening our doors to them. We are letting them infiltrate us at all levels, from the government on down. We saw what happened with Eric Swalwell, who's actually in charge, who's actually on the board of a committee that is responsible for international foreign affairs, and basically should be an anti-spy organization, and he slept with a spy. So we have that happening. So from the top on down, people, this is what's going on. What do you think, Isla?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of Chinese people understand how suck it is to live in a socialism and communism society. And that's why when we entered the United States, we're not looking for the same pathway that we have been worked through. And I am not living in a Maoist era, but, my grandparents lived in that time. I've heard many, many stories of the Cultural Revolution, of all of those sufferings that Chinese people at that time had endured under that, pressure and tension of the Maoist era. So I don't, nobody would want the United States to work the same way, and communism doesn't work. That the history already told us. So we have to see, and we have to be aware of the warnings posing right here. Like what we've been said for a long time ago, the CCP poses the greatest threat to this country. David.
Yeah, they do. And I wanted to correct myself on something. Swalwell is actually he's on the, I didn't say what it was, but he's on the Department of Justice Intelligence Committee. He's a member of that. He's actually recently put out a statement talking about how President Trump is despicable, and he was a dictator, and he goes against rule of law. Meanwhile, this guy's sleeping with a spy from China. That's it, people. You're worried. It's happening from the inside. We see it happening every single day. We have a guy on the Intelligence Committee, the House Intelligence Committee, sleeping with a spy, and then pointing the finger in the other direction so you don't look at him, saying that, no, Trump's the one. He's the guy. Don't look at me. He's the one. That's what the Democratic Party does. That's what they do. They redirect. They're the double standard Dems, and we know why. And we'll tell you about it every single episode if we need to, people, until the CCP is taken down. And we clean out our own government, too, because we have a lot of issues within. And again, this is why it makes everything so hard for us as whistleblowers, and for us trying to get the new federal state of China. It has been established, but for us to take over the CCP and to, as they say, plant the flag into the ground. And make sure we see those flags hanging from not only, embassies in China, but all over the world. The last segment we're going to share here for you, it's also about critical race. And it's, again, parents saying that they don't want this critical race theory in their schools anymore.
Fairfax County public school teacher, and I'm going to give a message of encouragement to parents and teachers and students who are too afraid to come and speak forward. Parents, the longer that you wait and you don't hold your child's schools accountable, gives these guys more time to dictate what's best for your child's physical, mental, and emotional health. Don't be afraid to speak out for your kids because they are voiceless and they rely on you. You should be afraid of them rooting for socialism by the time they get to middle school. Teachers, it may seem that our careers have come to a dead end, but I'm here to remind you, we don't work for the school board. We work to mold the next generation of well-rounded American patriots. So don't give up, because it is up to us. Students, you are on the front lines of these indoctrination camps. Challenge the staff when you're presented with a ludicrous statement, and do not allow anybody to tell you that you cannot accomplish anything because of your skin color, or to hate yourself because of your skin color. Students, it is up to you to be the next generation of victims or victors. And finally, to the board, this isn't over, and your policies are just as pathetic as making us wear masks.
Nick Gossard, followed by Ryan.
Yeah, of course they cut her off at the end there. She was making way too much sense. Their minds were exploding, Isla. But my final statement about all this with the critical racism theory is, where's our government in all of this? I'll tell you where they are. They're enjoying this because this is what they want to happen. This is the Democratic Party's evil at work right here. They want to perpetuate this socialist and communist agenda that they have all set up for us. And people, pay attention. Pay attention. It's happening right now. We are in the middle of this. Any thoughts, final thoughts on that? I have a little closing statement I want to make here about this episode.
Right.
We're kind of running out of time, sorry.
I think for people who are attending schools in the United States, a lot of the institutions, including colleges and Ivy League schools, they're trying to promote far left ideologies of all of those socialism and communism ideas. And if you take a look at those liberal arts schools, these things aren't that strange. That people that the institutions is trying to promoting and practicing all of those ideologies. And of course, younger generations have, maybe blindly believe into those concepts because they are kind and they lack of social experience, or they have never lived in a socialist country like what we do. But look what had happened in China today. The CCP, despite being a paper tiger, but the Chinese people are suffering from day to day. You see all of those quarantine lives. You see all of the resources that were taken away by the Communist Party and all of the control from the regime. We don't want another country to walk the same pathway. If it's not America, then not Europe, not every other country, because we know that socialism and communism doesn't work well in the end of the history books. That's why we have the whistleblowers movement. We expose all of the evil acts and all of those lies by the Chinese Communist Party. So my closing statement is being right here. CCP is always the single greatest threat to this country. And it's ridiculous to address that global warming being the current threat that we have to deal with. Look at COVID-19, listen to Dr. Yan, and pay attention to what whistleblowers movement, the new federal state of China have been promoting. We're not trying to let people to believe in us, but at least please hear what we say and think about why we say it. David.
Americans, thank you, Isla, for that. Beautifully said. Are you going to continue to allow this to happen? Are you going to continue to allow yourselves to be lied to by the mainstream media, by CNN, perpetuated by big tech, to allow the erosion of everything that this great country was built upon? Are you going to continue to allow this to happen? What the Democratic Party right now is doing to our country is nothing short of treasonous, and it needs to end. This makes the whistleblower movement, again, so much more tougher to achieve our dreams of a new federal state of China when we have a government that clearly is supporting everything that the CCP has to offer, and we allow them, the CCP, to infiltrate our country at will, like I said previously. We can clearly see now that this fight is not only against the CCP from the outside, we have to battle our own government from the inside. We're trying to block probes into Wuhan, or they are, I'm sorry, we're not. We're certainly not trying to block probes into Wuhan. They're telling me that global warming is our biggest threat. Not the CCP, not Russia, not Iran, not COVID. Global warming. They're allowing CCP-enabled apps to infiltrate our technology infrastructure. They're teaching our children that white people are bad and dividing the nation even more is good, and they're weakening us from the inside. And they're allowing illegal immigrants to flood into our southern border to ensure that they can get the votes for their next run at the presidency, and that they're ensuring that we have a socialist and communist government. This administration does not care at all about you. This is America last. Trump was America first. Get used to it, people. Are you seeing the big picture now? You see the plan? But that's what makes us who we are, Isla. We are at a precipice here. We need to continue the fight, and we need to fight harder than we ever have before. There are times like these when everything seems so difficult that we must not give up. That's exactly what they want, Isla. The CCP wants us to give up. Our government wants us to give up. They want us to be weak, and they want us to be overthrown. It is time to separate the men from the boys, as they say, or the women from the girls. Are you up to the challenges, my brothers and sisters? We are at a precipice. We need to fight harder than we ever have before. I want to thank all of you so much for joining us this evening and listening to us as we give our insight on China and the U.S. We want to thank you for joining us on The Fringe. We are on every Tuesday and Friday from 7 to 8 p.m. on gtv.org, MOS Talk. Again, thank you very much for joining us. You all have a great weekend. Be safe, be free, and God bless you and your families. Have a good night.
Thank you, Fringers.
他们的恐惧是我们的武器，我们的胜利。谢谢了，兄弟姐妹们，你们健身了吗？行动，行动，行动！中共，你完了 ！Take down the CCP！
Just beginning, but the games you want to play. Bring it on and now we'll fight to the end. Just watch and see. It's all started, everything's begun, and you are over. Cause we're taking down the CCP. Spread the word all through Hong Kong. We will fight till they're all gone. We rejoice when there's no more. Let's take down the CCP. They have all lied for too long. We will end what they do wrong. Spread the word all through Hong Kong. Let's take down the CCP. Let the bullets fly a little longer, and you will surrender. Let the bullets fly a little longer. We will have freedom to live. We will win. You'll surrender. Let the bullets fly a little longer. 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 Let the bullets fly a little longer.
干灭中国共产党这个 CCP， 才能让我们远离恐惧。Take down the CCP.
They try to scare the nation with fabrication, but we see through the lies. We won't fall, we will fight you back. Police corruption with crooked assumption. They ran our lives, but no more. We will win. We will take down the CCP. Spread the word all through Hong Kong. We will fight till they're all gone. We rejoice when there's no more. Let's take down the CCP. They have all lied for too long. We will end what they do wrong. Spread the word all through Hong Kong. Let's take down the CCP. Let the bullets fly a little longer, and you will bullets fly a little longer.
站起来吧，
Let the bullets fly a little
为
longer.
奴役的人们
Let the bullets fly a little longer.
行动，
Let the bullets fly a little longer.
行动，
Let the bullets fly a little
你
longer.
完了。
Let the bullets fly a little longer.
Take it down, CCP.
Bullets fly a little longer, and you will surrender. Let the bullets fly a little longer. We will have freedom to live. We will win. You'll surrender. Let the bullets fly a little longer.
Take it down,
Let the bullets fly a little longer.
Take it down,
Let the bullets fly a little longer.
Take it down,
Let the bullets fly a little longer.
Take it down,
Let the bullets fly a little longer.
Take it down,
Let the bullets fly a little longer.
Take it down,
Let the bullets fly a little longer.
Take it down,
Let the bullets fly a little longer.
Take it down,
Let the bullets fly a little longer.
Take it down, the evil CCP.